Well, I think we are going to go ahead and get started. We do still have a few people coming in, but I think it's time for us to just kind of jump in here. I want to say thank you to everyone who's joining us today. I'm Jacqueline Von Ogden. I'm the Director of Marketing and Communications here at Cimcor. And we have a great webinar today. Very exciting. We've been talking about this internally, but we've had a lot of interest in this subject. So I'm very excited for this webinar today. Today's webinar, top 3 reasons you're struggling with security and compliance. And in this webinar, we are going to discuss the struggles organizations face with security compliance mandates in a constantly changing environment. We'll talk about the key to continuous compliance with major regulatory requirements and how threat intelligence reporting and integrations help keep organizations secure. With that, I'd like to introduce our panelists. We have Robert Rodriguez, who is the Vice President of Sales here at Cimcor. And we also have Justin Chandler, who is our Sales Engineer here at Cimcor as well. And again, great presentation. I've seen this, so great presentation by both is coming your way. And with that, I'm going to hand this off to Robert. And and one last housekeeping item. If you have questions throughout the webinar, go ahead and type your questions in. We are going to be doing a Q&A session at the end. So feel free to ask questions throughout if you need to. All right, I'm going to go ahead and Robert, you can go ahead and take it away.
All right, thanks, Jackie. At this point, you should be able to see my screen and hear me okay? Hopefully
Yes,
that's happening.
Mm-hmm.
All right, great. So like Jackie said, today we're talking about 3 reasons you might be struggling with security and compliance. So just to take a step back, let's talk about compliance, why that's important, why we deal with it. And basically it boils down to at some point somewhere, someone didn't self-regulate. And so somebody had to step in, whether it's a group of companies, whether it's the government, and say, hey, here are some different controls that you need to start meeting. We want to make sure that this breach doesn't happen or this kind of hack doesn't happen. So we're going to put these controls, which we're going to call compliance, around you. And so now this is something that we're all dealing with. Pretty much in every industry, every company, we have a certain set of laws or regulations as part of our operations. Sometimes those are very loosely. They might be compliance with a small c. Sometimes those are big compliance frameworks like HIPAA or PCI or NERC-CIP, and we call that compliance for like a big C. That's what we're dealing with nowadays. That's what we deal with as security professionals. And so the question is, why we deal with compliance? If you look at the screen here, these are just a few of the things that we're dealing with from a daily perspective inside any large enterprise. Everything we're trying to secure and make sure things are in compliance, things like databases and cloud and network. And every single one of those things that we're dealing with is a target. And so we use these compliance standards, whether they're internal compliance standards, whether they're external ones that are forced on us. We use those to secure everything we have so we don't become that next breach, so that we don't have a leak of customer information. That's what we're using compliance for. And so compliance, it decreases our risk of fines, of penalties, of breaches, of shutdowns, of lawsuits. And so if everybody was compliant with everything, that would be great, right? There would be probably still breaches, not as many. But we're not. It's hard to do that. And that's what this whole talk's about today. It's about compliance. So the question is, we have compliance, but why do we fail? On the screen here, you see 16 different types of compliance. And this is one of the reasons that we fail compliance, is because there's so many different kinds, with so many different kinds of controls, so many different kinds of regulations that we fall underneath. And not all of us are compliance experts. And there's going to be times that you're going to fall under maybe 2 or 3 different types of compliance at the same time, where you're trying to untangle these different documents and figure out what needs to be done to be compliant. And you're doing it 2 or 3 different times in 2 or 3 different contexts, so it gets hard. So because of that, we tend to fail compliance. And the 3 main reasons, now Cimcor as a company, we've been around for 25 years. This year's our 25th year. We've dealt with many, many, many customers. And these are the things that we've heard over and over, where people are coming to us to help them with compliance. These are the 3 main reasons that we've heard over the years of why people are failing compliance. And that first one on the very top there is poor implementation. We're trying to make all of our environment compliant. That's what we hear. But we don't even know our whole environment. We don't know what we don't know. Or there's too many changes in our environment, and it's hard to keep a look at those and see what's compliant and what's not. So the implementation might be poor from the get-go. And if we, build the house poorly, it's hard to keep it up to date. So poor implementation for compliance, it's hard to do. We don't know what's out there. That's one of the main reasons that we're failing compliance. The next reason that we're hearing from a lot of customers is that it's a lot of manual processes. They have 100 or 1,000 different items that they're trying to make compliant. It might be endpoints, they might be servers, it might be network devices, and they're doing these manually. You have very highly skilled, highly paid people who are very, very smart doing very manual processes. And you know what, anytime we have people doing hundreds and thousands of manual processes, that brings up, time for us to mess up is what it is. So manual processes is one of the reasons that we fail compliance. We've implemented things poorly, we're trying to do it manually. And the last one is lack of continuous monitoring. Let's say there's this brief shining moment where you have all 5,000 of your servers and endpoints and network devices, and they're all compliant. Everything's great. What happens at next patch Tuesday when Microsoft starts patching a lot of different things in their environment? And what happens when one of those applications auto updates? And maybe it opens up some ports that we don't know about. What happens when somebody brings a new device onto the network and doesn't talk to you about it? Shadow IT opens up some cloud access that we don't know about. That's one of the reasons that we see a lot of people failing compliance. They can't monitor. It's hard to do it manually. They can't monitor everything. They don't know what's going on. They don't know what they don't know. So those big three main reasons we implemented poorly. We're doing it manually, and it's hard to watch and see what's going on. And what happens when we fail compliance? It's nothing good. There's reputational damage. There's fines that are involved. You can see here, there's a HIPAA fine here for almost $5 million. A NERC SIP fine, that's near and dear to my heart. That's the industry I came from. A NERC SIP fine for $10 million. A PCI fine for non-compliance for $145 million. If you work for a bank, if my bank gets hacked, I can tell you what I'm doing tomorrow morning. It's switching banks. There's reputational damage involved in those kind of things. We want to make sure we stay compliant. We don't want to have our customers' information getting out. We don't want to be the cause of a breach. We don't want reputational damage to our company. We don't want fines. So we don't want to fail compliance. So the question is, how do we succeed? How do we make sure that we're successful in staying compliant internally, staying compliant externally during an audit? And that's what we're here to talk about today. We're here to talk about SimTrack. SimTrack's our flagship product here at Cimcor. And what it does is we're going to take a look at every single thing in your environment. We're going to continuously monitor everything. We're going to look at everything, and we're going to do that from a compliance standpoint. We're going to tell you what's compliant, what's not. If things fall out of compliance, we're going to tell you automatically. Just a real quick slide on our platform here. We look at that box second from the left, the purple one that just talks about compliance. Here's some of the things that we do: continuous monitoring. We'll give you guidance on how to correct things. We'll benchmark your systems. And we have, about 12, 15 different compliance standards there, and there's dozens more that we do right out of the box. What I don't want to do is steal Justin's thunder. Justin's actually going to bring up SimTrack. He's going to show you some of these things. He's going to walk you through these, show you how they work, how easy they are, and why they're important. And then I'll round it back up. So Justin, if you're ready, you can go ahead and take over from here.
All right, sounds good. So you should be able to see my screen. This is the SimTrack Management Console, and this is where we'll be configuring policies to do compliance scans, benchmark scans on a continuous basis. And it's pretty quick and easy to set up. First, how would we actually register a machine or a system with SimTrack? Well, first, you can do a network discovery, and this would allow us to bring those devices into SimTrack into our tree view so we can interact with them, where we can scan by subnet, individual IP or host name. Once we find those machines, they'll get added to our tree and be able to add scans on them. Or you might install an agent on the system in which a part of that installation process adds that system to the tree view. At this point, now it's the same process to set up a policy, which I'm going to show you a single system setup first, but we can do this in bulk as well across the entire environment. So when you set up a compliance policy, the first thing a user might do is choose a compliancee they care about, that they're required to abide by, that they're looking to achieve. Maybe it's FFIEC or PCI or NIST. You can choose multiple. And notice when you do this, it automatically chooses the benchmark you need to run a report for that audit. Now, not every 2016 Windows server is the same. There are profiles you need to choose for these benchmarks, such as, is it a domain controller or a regular member server? There might be different tests they need to check for an Active Directory system, so they have different profiles of tests. And how often you want to scan? Maybe every day at midnight, which is the default, every first of the month, every Monday and Friday at noon, you choose. At this point, we'll start getting some results back. And here we can see how hardened the machine is based on those CIS practices. And today, my machine's not doing so good. We can go and look at the details of this and see from the most recent scan what happened. Here's all the tests listed. I can sort them by status and maybe look at the ones that failed first. I can double click these tests to read more. And here in this case, it's looking for me to rename my admin account, which I failed to do. But all the information is here to fix this. Firstly, a description on what this GPO or group policy object is and what it affects. The rationale on why it's important that I make this change, and how to make the change, how to fix it and remediate the problem. And on the Windows side, it's all going to be group policy based. Copying that path, go in your GPO editor, paste it, find it, and set the value they want. And then, of course, the impact there is listed. Should there be any reboots required or whatever changes may happen to the system when you make this change. Now, there are waivers for scenarios where maybe you can't make some of these changes. In this case, the admin account. What if that production program that made your business run needs this account? It's a legacy program. I know it's hard-coded. They don't let you change the name of it or it breaks. We're getting rid of it next year, Q4, but today we got it. Well, I don't want a failure in my report every day for the next year. So with that, I can add a waiver and justify that super special reason I have on why I can't make this change, that legacy program, and we're going to get rid of it by Q4 next year. With the waiver in place, now we won't even check this test anymore. We'll skip it. And while the waiver is in place, now on the report, you won't get an alert for a failure. It won't be big and red. Now it'll say waived. Why? You can offer the waiver report to show them all your reasons. And you may apply this to other machines who also require this waiver, whether it's by individual system, or you can do it by tag, which may represent many systems, such as production, staging, Chicago, DB servers, whatever it might be. Now, as these are continuously running, there is a scan history tab to see all the previous scans, see how it may have been getting better and better or worse and worse to kind of see that trend for the system on all those continuous scans going out from the past. Now, something else here, and that's the mappings. I talked about the benchmark, but what are mappings? Well, that's essentially what allows us to use these benchmark tests as evidence for different compliancy requirements. And there's many mappings we support. And the idea is again, finding those individual tests that can be used as evidence for particular requirements. There's a PCI example. I have a breakout here of all these requirements. And as you expand them, you'll see a particular CIS tests from the OS benchmark to various of them, and which tests are required to show that. To where now, back in the results, you see that those scores as well, and you can track many of them. And the reason why the scores are different is because they're not using every single test that's found in the benchmark, which I think is about over 300 total tests. Well, for some of these mappings or compliances, only 200 or so really matter for what they're trying to show proof of. Now, all this data you've seen in the tool can be reported on as well. Maybe hand off to an executive or an auditor, showing similar information, the system, the IP, what benchmark we ran, what profile, the score, this is a real good one, and then all the pass, fail, or waive status, the same information I shared before, the remediation steps, the rationale, description. But then there's the mapping reports too, reporting on the score for that compliance C. Maybe it's FFIEC, or PCI or HIPAA or NIST. We got them all. And the idea is the same between them all. It's the audit requirements in order like the auditor might expect. And you'll see these scores on the right as you go down through these requirements. Well, where's this coming from? Who says I'm PCI 2.1, 100% passing? Where's the proof? Well, it's right there in the report. Normally you're going out there taking screenshots, compiling them all in a Word doc, notating and titling them all and zipping them all up in the perfect order. Why do that? We're already looking at the exact values you need to gather, putting it right in the report where it belongs to show proof for that particular requirement. Move on to the next one. Now, some of these things might be blank. These are things that we can't see. A good example might be where PCI, really expects you to log everyone who walks in the building and the sign-in sheet, human training. We don't know if you're doing that. We're software. So of course you might have to show proof of evidence elsewhere, like that clipboard at the front desk or the sign-off sheet when the employee finishes training. Now, I want to circle back to configuration. We talked about configuring a single device. You don't want to do that same process for 5 systems, 10 systems, 100 systems, 1,000 systems, 100,000 systems. It's too much work. Well, I got bulk operations for pretty much everything here in SimTrack. And making those compliance policies is one of them, where I can get a list of all my systems, maybe sort by OS, maybe get the online ones, and kind of get the collection I need, or I can just pick all of them. When you do this, on the next screen, now you can choose the mappings you might want to show proof of. The PCI, HIPAA, NIST, whatever it might be, multiple, CMMC. And then, based on all the systems you selected, right back to that profile selection. All right, for those 2019 servers, yeah, those are the domain controllers. Those Red Hat systems, no, those are just regular workstations. Those developers like to use those instead. Windows 10, yeah, we have the BitLocker installed on that system. It's just doing it all at once. And then you click OK, it'll go ahead and make all these policies for all these systems all in bulk in seconds with one click of a button. Lastly, there are some overall dashboards here giving you highlights as to what's been like the most recent scan results, the top failing tests amongst all of the benchmarks, some high-level overview screens here on, of all the systems I'm checking for CMMC, which ones are passing or failing, and getting overall summary counts here, and getting shortcuts right back to the direct results to see them if you wish to go investigate. So overall, very easy to set up an entire environment and get benchmark results in minutes and start reacting and getting those things remediated. Continuous scans based on the schedule you choose. That way, like Rob said, today might be the day everything's set up perfect, 100%. But you don't want to go out there and click these buttons and run the scans on 100 systems every day and read the results and see if it passed or not. Why don't you just wait for SimTrack to alert you via email, via syslog, via SIM solution, via ticketing integration to ServiceNow maybe, or BMC Remedy to make a ticket for an alert that a system's come out of compliance and we need to remediate it. With that, I think I'll hand it off back to Rob. And I can't wait to hear some of the questions we might get at the end.
All right, thanks, Justin. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen again. And Justin talked very quickly about SimTrack, what it does at the core. SimTrack, we're system assurance, we're file integrity management. We know what's going on, all the files in your environment. We know every time they change, we know those changes are good or bad. And because of that, we can overlay compliance on that too. We can say, are those changes good or bad? Are those changes in compliance or not in compliance? So we talked before Justin showed SimTrack, we talked real quick about why do we fail compliance. Our customers say they fail because they have bad implementation, it's a poor implementation. There's manual processes all the way around. They can't monitor everything. What Justin talked about is what SimTrack does for compliance. And that leads us to our next slide, which is how do we succeed with compliance? And that's with SimTrack. We go from that poor implementation to a simple and quick implementation. Justin showed you where it was right-clicking a device, adding it, right-clicking it, picking the compliancy, and then it's applied, and we're done. We said we're not able to monitor continuously. That's what SimTrack does. We're continuously monitoring real time across the environment. In fact, we hold a patent for real-time file integrity monitoring. We're the only ones who can do it. We're monitoring your environment real time. And the processes that we do this with are automated. There's no need for human interaction. You'll get notified when something changes that's bad. And if something changes that takes you out of compliance, you can say, notify me. Or you can say, you know what, just change it back. Don't even allow that to change. So the question is, how do we succeed with compliance? And the answer is SimTrack. We're going to make things quick. We're going to make things simple for you. We're going to make things easy. All those processes that you had people doing manually are now going to be done automatically. Those people are going to be freed up. They're going to free up time. You're going to free up money by freeing up those people to do other things in the environment rather than worry about compliance. Now, this sounds like it might be too good to be true, but you don't have to take my word for it. These are some of our customers. This is just a small example of some of our customers, but we have people like the United States Air Force, United States Army. We have Zoom and NASA using us to help them with file integrity management, with system assurance, and with compliance. In fact, Justin talked about NIST, and he showed in there NIST 800-171. NIST is a customer of ours. People use NIST for compliance. NIST uses us to help them stay compliant. So that something that makes me proud all the time to work here. But like I said, you don't have to take a word for it. These are just a small example of some of our customers. And we have many more on our website. You can come see video testimonials on our website at cimcor.com. So to wrap things up, we want to stay compliant. That's what SimTrack does. SimTrack can help you stay compliant with foundational security controls. We're going to help you stay compliant by continuously monitoring and making sure that you have an operational excellence to stay compliant, freeing you up to do bigger and better things inside your environment. So with that being said, we are done here for today. I'm going to open up for any questions that might have come in during our talks.
Okay, it looks like we have a couple of questions here. The first question is in regards to POS systems. I have 8,000 Windows POS systems. Is this even relevant for me?
Well, I can touch on that. Yeah, definitely. I may have briefly shown just servers and workstations, but POS devices are totally in the loop too. Now, of course, there's a wide variety of models and devices and operating systems out there. A lot of the Android ones or any of the mobile operating system based ones we do not support, and there are not benchmarks created for them anyway by CIS or DISA. But there are many POS systems that run Windows embedded, POS 7, the new Windows IoT platform. And all these versions of Windows we do support and do have benchmarks for and can help you harden those machines, remediate them, and offer compliance reports for their hardening status.
And I can elaborate on that one a little bit too. This is kind of a quick slide that to show you a lot of our architecture. But right here, we tell you we have agents. You can see the screen right now. We have agents for servers, for VM, for workstations, like Justin said, for POS systems. So your 8,000 POS systems that you're trying to keep compliant, first of all, wow. But yeah, we can definitely do it with SimTrack here. I'll just go through the slide real quick too. With collectors, we can look at not just workstations and servers and ATMs and POS, but we can look at things like your containers, your hypervisors, your cloud. With our compliance modules, which is what we focused on today, just one part of what SimTrack does, we can make sure those are compliant. We can look at the database schemas and configurations. We can look at log files, Active Directory, LDAP. We can ingest sticks and taxi feeds. We can ingest different file reputation services like VirusTotal to tell you exactly those files that are in your environment. Yeah, some of them we care about if they're compliant. There's others that we just care about, are they real? Are they ransomware? Are they different things? And then we integrate with everything like Justin said, with ServiceNow, BMC, Jira. So we're going to make this very, very easy for you to not just stay compliant, but stay compliant with your 8,000 POS systems and and keep that going into the future. So great question. Did any more come in, Jack, here?
Yeah, we do have another one. What's the difference between this and XDR? And really, how does it fit?
I can talk about that one. I have a slide here. If you give me a second, I have a competitive matrix slide that might be a good answer to this one. Give me 1 second. So we don't, on this slide here, we talk a little bit about what SimTrack does compared to some of the other systems out there. So you can see on here that a lot of people say, okay, so my IDS does some file integrity management. Monitoring changes and reporting on changes isn't integrity management. Just saying a file changed does nothing for me to say, who changed it, what changed, when did it change, is that file still compliant? That has nothing to do with that. So things like XDRs, SIMs, antivirus, vulnerability management systems, firewalls, they all claim to have some sort of integrity piece inside them. They generally have the most basic integrity piece, which is just, hey, A changed to B. What happened inside of it, I have no idea. But so things like XDRs, SIMs might claim to have some type of file integrity management, some kind of system assurance, some kind of compliance. But they generally don't provide the actual data that you need to be safe in your environment.
Okay, and it looks like we have one more here. And basically, they want to see more. They want to hear more about the continuous compliance. You talked a lot about continuous monitoring. Can you talk a little bit more about the continuous compliance?
Yeah, Justin, you hit on that earlier. You want to talk more about that?
Yeah. So for continuous compliance, it really just comes down to the fact that we can automate these scans to run every day, every 10th day of the month, however often you wish, to where upon those intervals, should we identify anything wrong or non-compliant or insecure based on these benchmark practices, you'll be notified. I mean, right after the scan's done. If you don't get any alerts, well, everything's all good. Go back to working on everything else that matters to you and all the other roles that engineers have nowadays. But yeah, let SimTrack take care of the work or the worry and let you know when you need to go fix something, send out a new GPO, do another GP update /force, because we all know we have to do that 10 times for GPOs to go through. Just wait for SimTrack to let you know. And I wanted to add one more comment too in the previous one about XDRs. Rob had a great explanation. Another example too is we actually integrate with Palo Alto's Cortex XDR. We have a new integration that allows different responses SimTrack can take based on different incidents that are discovered. So that's another way or proof to show it, like XDRs really need some of our capabilities, and with Palo Alto's Cortex integration we accomplished really kind of helps bring the whole story together and how we help each other out.
Looks like we have another question here. How much traffic is generated between the agents and collectors? And what happens if a collector is unreachable for a short time? Are messages queued or are they discarded?
Yeah, I can touch on this. We actually just did this test not too recently. I think they found that a benchmark scan only sends out like 400 kilobytes worth of data. It's not a lot. I think that Windows benchmark I showed was 300 tests, but it's only sending back, is the registry, is it 1 or 0, for these tests. So it's not a ton of data. It's not paragraphs worth of information. It's just, 300 tests and the value that it finds. So yeah, I think it was about 400 to 800 kilobytes per scan per system, which is almost nothing really. So that's never really been a concern on the bandwidth side. There was another part of that question I meant to answer. I think, okay, for continuous monitoring. So beyond the benchmarks, we also do file integrity monitoring in true real time. So another part of continuous monitoring is, monitoring critical files that maybe should never change, super critical config files that makes your website work or some production program do what it's supposed to do. Well, if someone came in and fat fingered the config and it ruined your business, would you want to know? Well, we can monitor in real time. The second the change occurs, we can alert that that file is modified, providing the who, the what, the when, what process, and tons of other forensic details around these changes.
And just another part of that was he had asked, what if the collector's unreachable? Do we
Oh, yes,
queue
yes.
those?
Well, the collector really only matters for some of the remote scans, actually. If you have an agent on it, it's all good. We do have offline caching, though, which is primarily for the file monitoring side, to where if the repo is down our database and the agents and collectors have nowhere to send data to from the scans or file changes they see, they just store it in its local cache, in its pocket. And the next time the repository is back online, it dumps the cache, sends it all over, and it goes back to sending it back in real time. So definitely thought of that. A lot of scenarios where entities or organizations have, laptops. Everyone has a laptop at the business and they leave the network, go home, come back the next morning. So definitely have some of that covered where the agent can still monitor and collectors can still scan regardless of the repository, but to send it over the next time it can communicate. Good question.
Good. Anything else, Jackie?
That is it. Unless there are any additional questions, thank you to everyone who chimed in with questions. We can obviously, if there are any other follow-up questions, we of course can answer any questions for you at any point in time. I'm going to go ahead and share some additional information here. We'll share Robert and Justin's information. You can contact them to reach out if you have any additional questions. But that's it. Those are the only questions that came in so far. But thank you to both of you for going through that. That was really great information.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. You guys have a great day.
Bye.
Bye.